Welcome back to another deep dive into the strange and violent corners of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Today, we're exploring one of the most bizarre hypothetical scenarios you could imagine in the grim darkness of the far future. What happens when Orks capture a Chaos Dreadnought? And even more improbably, that tortured machine actually wants to join the Greenskin warband. This is a scenario that pushes against the very fabric of 40k lore. It requires us to examine the fundamental nature of two wildly different forces in the galaxy, to understand what makes them tick, and to explore what might happen when these incompatible philosophies collide. It's a thought experiment that reveals just how strange, how violent, and yes, how darkly comedic this universe can be. The Imperium of man fights endless wars against the forces of chaos, viewing them as the ultimate corruption, the antithesis of everything the God Emperor stands for. Meanwhile, Orks fight everyone, including themselves, caring nothing for the philosophical implications of their enemies and seeing only the joy of combat. But what happens when these two chaotic forces meet not on the battlefield as enemies, but in a twisted alliance born from the most unlikely of circumstances? To understand this scenario, we need to first understand what a Chaos Dreadnought truly is. We need to comprehend the unique psychology of the Orks and how their culture operates. We need to explore the mechanics of Ork looting, the power of the Gestalt, field, and the incompatibility between chaos corruption and Ork beliefs. Only then can we begin to construct a plausible, or at least entertaining, exploration of this most unusual situation. The nature of chaos. Dreadnoughts, walking tombs of madness. Before we can understand how a Chaos Dreadnought might end up wanting to join an Ork warband, we need to understand what these nightmarish machines actually are, and more importantly, what it's like to be entombed within one. In the Imperium, to be interred in a Dreadnought is considered among the highest honors a Space Marine can receive. When a warrior has been so gravely wounded that death is certain, but his service is deemed too valuable to lose, he may be entombed within the armored sarcophagus of a Dreadnought. His broken body is preserved in amniotic fluids, while his mind is hardwired directly into the war machine, allowing him to continue fighting for the Emperor even when his flesh has failed him. Loyalist Space Marines view this as a sacred duty, a way to serve the God Emperor for centuries or even millennia beyond their normal lifespan. But for Chaos Space Marines, this same process is nothing short of a living nightmare. The traitor legions that turned against the Emperor during the Horus Heresy retained much of the technology to create and maintain Dreadnoughts, but without the resources and infrastructure of the Imperium, their Dreadnought patterns have degraded over the millennia. More significantly, exposure to the warp and the malevolent influence of chaos has twisted these machines into something far more horrific than their Imperial counterparts. The most common type of Chaos Dreadnought in the current era is known as a Hellbrute. The very name speaks to the horror of what these machines have become. Unlike Imperial Dreadnoughts, which keep their pilots in a form of stasis sleep between battles, Hellbrutes offer no such mercy. The sarcophagus of a Hellbrute is pseudo-parasitic, its infernal warp-tainted machinery forcing an agonizing connection between the pilot's nervous system and the machine's corrupted systems. This interface subjects the pilot to an endless waking nightmare, a torment that rapidly drives even the most hardened Chaos Space Marine to the deepest pits of madness. The process doesn't end there. Over time, the flesh of the warrior within begins to literally meld with the metal of the machine. Muscle fuses with cables, bone merges with adamantium, until the line between biological being and mechanical construct becomes increasingly blurred. The machine itself begins to take on organic characteristics, with metal warping into claw-like talons and artificial limbs growing and mutating in grotesque parodies of life. What emerges is neither fully machine nor fully demon, but something that exists in a horrifying, liminal space between the two. For the consciousness trapped within, this transformation is accompanied by an ever-increasing madness. A Hellbrute pilot is consumed by rage, frustration, and despair in equal measure. He can no longer feel the kick of a bolter in his hands or see the battlefield through his own eyes. He cannot taste victory or smell the blood of his enemies. Every sensation is filtered through machine spirits corrupted by chaos, every experience mediated by systems that inflict constant agony upon his consciousness. Many Hellbrutes go completely insane within days or weeks of their interment, their minds shattered by the trauma of the transformation. This insanity manifests in terrifying ways on the battlefield. Unlike Imperial Dreadnoughts, which are revered and treated with the utmost respect by their battle brothers, Hellbrutes must be chained down between battles like rabid beasts. Their weapons are forcibly removed and their sarcophagi are disconnected from their chassis, left to seethe in darkness until they're needed again. When battle comes, the Hellbrute is awakened to a fresh hell of sensory input and psychic agony, and it's unleashed upon the battlefield with the single purpose of venting its rage on everything in its path, friend and foe alike. Among Chaos Space Marines, being interred in a Hellbrute is not an honor, but a punishment. It's a fate considered worse than death, and it's often used as such by Chaos Lords to dispose of rivals or punish those who have failed. The technology to create new Hellbrutes continues to exist, maintained by warpsmiths and the Dark Mechanicum, but unlike the Imperium, where only heroes are chosen for Dreadnought interment, anyone can end up in a Hellbrute. The mortally wounded, the politically inconvenient, or simply those in the wrong place at the wrong time can find themselves shackled to an existence of eternal torment. There are older patterns of Chaos Dreadnought that have not fully degraded into Hellbrutes. The Ferrum Infernus pattern, relics from the Horus heresy itself, can vary widely in their state. Some pilots have retained enough sanity to become hardened veterans with millennia of combat experience. Others have descended into complete madness, their consciousness fractured by the long ages of war and exposure to chaos. These older dreadnoughts are prized by chaos warbands, specifically because they haven't yet undergone the full transformation into Hellbrutes, though even they are gradually succumbing to chaos corruption as the centuries wear on. The rarest and most valued are the Contemptor pattern Chaos Dreadnoughts. These ancient war machines date back to the Great Crusade, incorporating technology that even the Dark Mechanicum struggles to fully replicate. Contemptors are built well enough and maintained carefully enough that their pilots do not suffer the same descent into madness that afflicts other Chaos Dreadnoughts. Interment in a Contemptor is typically reserved for powerful Chaos Lords, and the pilots retain enough of their faculties to remain effective battlefield commanders. But Contemptors are vanishingly rare, and few warpsmiths possess the knowledge to maintain them properly. Regardless of the pattern, being a Chaos Dreadnought means existing in a state between life and death, sanity and madness. The pilot's consciousness remains aware, but is slowly being consumed by rage, corrupted by chaos, and isolated from any meaningful connection with the living world. They fight because that's all they can do, because in combat, they can momentarily release some of the psychic pressure building within their tortured minds. But combat brings no real relief, only temporary distraction from their eternal torment. This is the being that we're imagining might somehow want to join an Ork warband. To understand why such a thing might happen, or how it could even be conceivable, we need to examine the circumstances that might drive a Chaos Dreadnought to such desperate measures, and what it might hope to gain from such an unlikely alliance. Understanding the Orks, violence, simplicity, and the power of belief. To understand how Orks might react to a Chaos Dreadnought wanting to join them, we need to understand how Orks think, which is both surprisingly simple and bewilderingly alien to human comprehension. Orks are not complicated beings. They exist for one purpose, and one purpose only: to fight. Not to conquer, not to build empires, not to spread ideology or worship gods in the traditional sense, just to fight. An Ork wakes up every morning with one question on his mind: what can I crump today? Everything else in Ork society flows from this simple, fundamental drive toward violence. This isn't metaphorical. Orks are literally engineered for warfare, created millennia ago by the ancient Old Ones as weapons in their war against the Necrons and the Satan. Orks are genetically programmed with instinctive knowledge and an overwhelming urge toward combat. An orc doesn't choose to be a warrior the way a human might enlist in an army. An orc is a warrior in the same way that a shark is a predator or a plant seeks sunlight. It's not culture or training, it's fundamental biology. But orcs aren't mindless. They have distinct personalities, likes and dislikes, ambitions and fears, though they'd never admit to the latter. They form complex social structures organized around might-making right. The biggest, strongest orc becomes the war boss, and other orcs follow him because he's obviously the best at crumping. If you want to take his place, you just need to crump him first. It's a remarkably efficient, if brutal, system of governance. Orc society is divided into clans, each representing a different philosophical approach to warfare. The Goths love close combat and headlong charges. The evil sons are obsessed with speed and vehicles. The bad moons are wealthy and flash, showing off their best gear. The Death Skulls are looters and scavengers who believe blue is lucky. The Blood Axes actually use tactics and sometimes even cooperate with other races, which most orcs find deeply suspicious and probably un-orky. Underlying all of this is the most important aspect of orc existence. The whack! The whack is many things. It's a war cry. It's a military campaign. It's a migration. But most fundamentally, it's a psychic phenomenon that defines the orc species. Every orc generates a low-level psychic field, and when orcs gather together in large numbers, these fields combine into a gestalt psychic energy that has real, tangible effects on reality. The WAG field is what allows orc technology to function. This is crucial to understanding how orcs might interact with captured enemy equipment. You see, orc technology shouldn't work. Their weapons are literally slapped together from scrap metal and held together with good intentions and the occasional rivet. Their vehicles are cobbled together from parts that have no business functioning together. By all the laws of physics and engineering, most orc technology should fall apart the moment it's used, if it even activates in the first place. But it does work, because orcs believe it works. The WAH field takes that belief and makes it real. Within limits, of course. An orc can't just pick up a rock, believe it's a gun, and start shooting. But if an orc builds something that could theoretically be a gun, even if it's technically non-functional by any reasonable engineering standard, the WAG field will give it that extra push it needs to actually fire. The more orcs present, the stronger this effect becomes. This same principle applies to orc cultural beliefs. Orcs genuinely believe that red vehicles go faster, and through the power of the WAG, they actually do. They believe blue is lucky, so blue equipment genuinely performs better in orc hands. They believe that if you paint flames on something, it becomes more effective at burning, and reality warps to accommodate these beliefs, at least when there are enough orcs around to power the Gestalt field. The orcs worship two gods, Gork and Mork. Gork is brutally cunning, and Mork is cunningly brutal. The difference between these two concepts is hotly debated by orcs, sometimes resulting in massive interclan warfare over whether Gork or Mork is the better god. Most non-orcs can't tell the difference, but to orcs, it matters intensely. Gork hits you when you're looking, Mork hits you when you're not. Gork represents raw physical power, Mork represents tactical cunning. Both are necessary for proper orc warfare. Gork and Mork exist in the warp, much like the Chaos gods, but they're fundamentally different entities. They're reflections of the orc species' collective psyche, born from and sustained by the Gestalt psychic energy of all orcs everywhere. They're considered indestructible. Even when defeated in the warp, they always come back, just like orcs themselves. This is significant because it means orcs have their own warp entities to revere, entities that are completely incompatible with chaos. Which brings us to a crucial point. Orks are highly resistant to chaos corruption, not immune. There are rare cases of individual orks falling to chaos, particularly when isolated from other orks for extended periods. But as a species, orks are remarkably difficult for chaos to corrupt. Their souls are too blunt, their psyches too simple. They don't experience the complex emotions that feed the chaos gods. They don't feel despair that Nurgle can exploit, excessive pleasure that Slaanesh desires, elaborate scheming that Tzeentch thrives on, or even the sophisticated bloodlust that Khorne prefers. Orks just want a good fight. That's not the same as Khorne's desire for skulls and blood. Khorne represents martial honor twisted into endless slaughter, a sophisticated concept of warrior pride corrupted by chaos. Orks don't have that sophistication. They're not building skull thrones or conducting blood rituals. They're just hitting things because hitting things is fun. It's too straightforward, too honest for chaos to properly get its hooks into. Moreover, the presence of other orks strengthens each individual ork's resistance to chaos. The wow field and the connection to Gork and Mork provide a psychic buffer against chaos corruption. An isolated ork might potentially be corrupted over time, but an ork in a proper warband is protected by the sheer mass of orky psychic energy surrounding him. This resistance to chaos is going to be crucial when we consider what happens when a chaos Dreadnought encounters an ork warband. The Hellbrute is saturated with chaos corruption, its very existence sustained by the malevolent energies of the warp. But the orks don't care about chaos, don't really understand it, and are largely immune to its influence. They're not going to be corrupted by proximity to a Hellbrute. They're just going to see a big stompy metal thing and think about whether they can loot it. Finally, we need to understand ork attitudes toward technology and salvage. Orks are consummate looters. They'll grab anything that looks useful or interesting and drag it back to their mech boys to be fixed and turned into proper orky equipment. This includes enemy vehicles, weapons, and equipment. The Deathskulls clan in particular are famous for looting everything not nailed down, and sometimes things that are nailed down if they can find a crowbar. When orks loot enemy equipment, they don't use it as is. That would be un-orky. Instead, they immediately begin modifying it, adding more weapons, painting it in garish colors, welding spikes and armor plates to it, and generally making it more proper. The original function of the equipment becomes secondary to making it big, loud, and intimidating. Subtlety is not an ork concept. If something works, you make it bigger. If it's broken, you hit it until it works. If it still doesn't work, you add more guns to it anyway, because that's never a bad idea. This is the culture and psychology that a Chaos Dreadnought would be encountering, a species that fights for the joy of it, that believes things into working through psychic gestalt fields, that's resistant to chaos corruption, and that will cheerfully loot anything they can get their hands on. Whether they'd accept a Chaos Dreadnought into their warband is another question entirely, one we'll explore in detail. But first, we need to understand how such an encounter might even occur in the first place. The capture. When chaos meets green. For a Chaos Dreadnought to end up in ork hands, and potentially asked to join them, we first need a scenario where the orks actually capture one alive, or at least functional enough to communicate. This is trickier than it might sound, because both Chaos Space Marines and orks tend to fight to the death, leaving very few opportunities for capture. Let's construct a plausible scenario. Imagine a Chaos warband conducting raids across an Imperial sector. This warband is led by a particularly ambitious Chaos Lord who's been promised power by his patron god in exchange for securing certain artifacts or conducting specific massacres. The warband includes several units of Chaos Space Marines, corrupted Imperial Guard regiments, demon engines, and at least one Hellbrute. Let's call him Malog, a former Iron Warriors legionary who's been locked in his metal prison for over 3,000 years. Malog is profoundly insane. The centuries of torment have shattered his mind into fragments, but some part of him still remembers what it was like to be mortal, to feel sensation, to experience something other than rage and pain. This memory torments him more than the physical agony of his imprisonment, because it reminds him of what he's lost and can never regain. The Chaos Warband makes the mistake of attacking a world that happens to be in the path of a growing where the Orks had been gathering for weeks, drawn by the presence of a particularly large and successful war boss named Gorfang Ironjaw. Gorfang's success against nearby Imperial and Toe forces has attracted thousands of Orks to his banner, and the Wag energy is building to critical levels. The Greenskin Horde is looking for a good fight, and the Chaos Warband has just announced themselves as perfect targets. The battle that follows is absolute carnage. The Chaos Space Marines are skilled warriors with millennia of combat experience, but they're vastly outnumbered. For every Ork that falls to bolter fire, 3 more charge forward, roaring with delight at the quality of the fight. The Chaos Lord quickly realizes they're not going to win this engagement through conventional means, and begins calling for a fighting withdrawal to their landing craft. Malog the Hellbrute is positioned at a choke point, his twin heavy flamers turning entire mobs of Orks into charred corpses. But Orks are nothing if not persistent, and they recognize a tough opponent when they see one. Several mech boys in Gorfang's warband spot the Hellbrute and immediately begin salivating at the prospect of looting such an impressive war machine. They redirect their boys to focus on the Hellbrute, even as the rest of the Chaos forces begin to retreat. What follows is a brutal melee. Orks swarm over Malog from all sides, attacking with crude power claws and rockets. Malog crushes dozens of them, his power fist pulping Ork bodies with each swing, his flamers reducing entire squads to ash. But there are simply too many of them. An Ork Nob, with a massive power claw, manages to sever some critical power conduits, causing one of Malog's weapon arms to go dead. More Orks pile on, attacking joints and exposed cabling with brutal efficiency born from thousands of years of fighting armored opponents. Malog's rage reaches a crescendo. He can feel his systems failing, can sense the Orks overwhelming him through sheer weight of numbers. Some part of his fractured mind recognizes that the rest of his warband has abandoned him, leaving him to face the Ork horde alone. The Chaos Lord didn't even try to extract him. Why would he? Hellbrutes are expendable, easily replaced with fresh victims. But instead of destruction, Malog experiences something unexpected. The Orks manage to disable his locomotion systems without destroying his sarcophagus. His consciousness remains intact, even as his ability to fight back is stripped away. He topples backward, crashing into the rockcrete, and suddenly he's surrounded by excited Ork faces peering at him with fascination rather than hostility. "What's this thing?" one Ork shouts. "It's a metal Yumi," another responds. "Look at all the Dakar on it." "Nah, it ain't just metal. There's something inside. I can hear it." This is when Malog makes a choice that will change everything. In the seconds before the Orks figure out how to pry open his sarcophagus or simply rip him apart for scrap, he does something that surprises even himself. He speaks. His Vox speakers crackle to life, powered by emergency backup systems. "Wait," he says, his voice a grinding mechanical rasp distorted by millennia of corruption. "I can help you." The Orks fall silent. This isn't normal behavior for loot. Loot doesn't talk. Well, sometimes it talks, but usually it's just demons screaming or machine spirits making weird noises. This is different. This sounds almost rational. The mech boys push forward, fascinated. One of them, a particularly clever big mech named Grotbog, peers at the Hellbrute's optical sensors. "You're still working, Din?" "I am. Functional," Malog responds. His mind races. What remains of it that can still think clearly? Why is he doing this? What does he hope to gain? But even as he asks himself these questions, he knows the answer. Anything is better than going back to the Chaos Warband. Anything is better than being chained in darkness between battles, serving masters who view him as nothing more than a weapon to be discarded when convenient. At least the Orks seem genuinely interested in him, as something other than expendable ammunition. "What can you do?" Grotbog asks, genuinely curious now. "I can fight," Malog says. "I have fought for 3,000 years. I know how to kill Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Xenos of every description. I can crush vehicles, destroy fortifications, and I require minimal maintenance compared to your own." He pauses, searching for a diplomatic term. "Constructions." The Orks look at each other, confused. This isn't how loot is supposed to behave. But it is interesting, and Orks are nothing if not opportunistic. "We's gonna talk to the boss," Grotbog declares. "You stay right there and don't try nothing funny." As if Marlog could go anywhere with his locomotion systems destroyed. He lies there in the rubble, listening to the sounds of battle fade as the remaining Chaos forces retreat and the Orks begin celebrating their victory. He has absolutely no idea what's going to happen next, but for the first time in millennia, he's not chained in darkness waiting for the next deployment. And that, incredibly, feels like progress. This is how a Chaos Dreadnought might end up in Ork custody, not as inert wreckage to be stripped for parts, but as a functional, conscious being with agency and the desperate desire to avoid returning to his previous existence. Now the real question begins. What do the Orks do with him? The Mech Boy's examination. Ork engineering meets warp-tainted technology. When the Orks drag Marlog back to their main camp, it causes quite a stir. Orks are used to looting enemy equipment, but enemy equipment that talks and asks to join them is highly unusual. Gorfang Ironjaw, the war boss, is initially inclined to just have the thing torn apart for scrap. After all, it's clearly some kind of chaos thing, covered in spiky bits and weird symbols that hurt to look at, and it probably isn't lucky. But Grotbog the Big Mech argues passionately for keeping it intact. "Boss, think about it," Grotbog says, his eyes gleaming with technological avarice. "This thing's been fighting for 3,000 years. It's got all kinds of gubbins we could learn from, and it can still fight. We just need to fix it up proper." "It's a chaos thing," one of the other knobs points out. "Chaos ain't natural. Might corrupt the boys." Grotbog waves this off dismissively. "Chaos ain't nothing to us. We's Orks. We's got Gork and Mork looking out for us. Some spiky bits ain't gonna hurt nobody." This is actually a reasonable argument by Ork standards. The Orks genuinely don't fear chaos corruption the way other species do, partly because they don't really understand it, and partly because they're largely immune to it. The WAG field surrounding the warband provides psychic protection, and their simple psyches don't offer much purchase for chaos to grip onto. The debate continues for several hours, with various Orks offering opinions. Some think it's a great idea, some think it's stupid. A few fights break out, as is traditional in Ork political discourse. Eventually, Gorfang makes his decision. "All right, here's what we's gonna do. The Mech Boys get to tinker with it, see if they can fix it up and make it proper. But if it causes any trouble, we scraping it, and if it can fight good, maybe we keep it around. But it ain't a real boy until it proves itself." This is about as official as Ork policy gets. Marlog is dragged into the Mech's workshop area, which is less a proper facility and more a large cleared space full of half-assembled vehicles, piles of scrap, and Gretchen running around carrying tools and parts. The Big Mech and his crew of lesser Mech Boys and Spanners immediately begin examining their new acquisition with the enthusiasm of children on Christmas morning. "Look at all these cables," one Mech exclaims. "Check out the power core, it's still running on some kind of warp thing," another observes. "Ooh, nice shooters, we can probably boost dose." Marlog, conscious throughout all of this, experiences a mixture of horror and fascination. The Orks aren't treating him with the reverence the Adeptus Mechanicus might show to ancient technology, nor with the contempt his Chaos Masters displayed. They're treating him like a really interesting puzzle that might explode at any moment, which in a way is refreshing in its honesty. "Can you hear us?" Grotbog asks, tapping on Marlog's hull. "Yes," Marlog responds through his Vox speakers. "Good. Now, we's gonna fix you up, but we gotta know what's broken and what ain't. Can you move?" "Yeah." Grotbog waves vaguely at Marlog's limbs. "Grabby things. My power fist is functional but low on power. My left arm's motivators are severed. My locomotion systems are offline. Internal diagnostics show damage to 17 major systems." The Mechs look at each other, impressed. "It knows what's wrong with itself. That's proper useful, that is. What follows is one of the strangest experiences in Marlog's long existence. The Orks begin working on him with tools that range from precision cutters to large hammers, and their approach to repair could charitably be called creative. They have absolutely no understanding of the sophisticated technology that went into creating a Dreadnought, let alone one corrupted by millennia of warp exposure. But they have instinctive knowledge of how mechanical things should work, and more importantly, they have the WH field backing them up. "This conduit's all melted," a spanner observes, looking at Malog's severed locomotion control. "We need something to replace it." "Use that cable from diluted Lehman Russ," Grotbog suggests. "But boss, that cable's for treads, not legs." "So, a cable's a cable. Hook it up." They proceed to do exactly that, welding and bolting the cable into place with cheerful disregard for compatibility issues. By all rights, it shouldn't work. The cable is designed for tank treads, not for the sophisticated servo systems of a Dreadnought's leg. The gauge is wrong, the connections don't match, the power requirements are different. It absolutely should not function. But when they fire up the system, Malog feels his leg respond. Slowly, jerkily, but it moves. The cable is doing its job despite being completely inappropriate for the task. This is Malog's first direct experience with the WAG field in action. The Orks believe the cable will work, so it does. Their collective psychic energy forces reality to accommodate their expectations. It's not even conscious. The Orks don't know they're doing it. They just expect their repairs to work, and that expectation becomes reality. "Ha! Told ya!" Grotbog crows. "Now let's fix the other leg, and we gotta get more Dakar on this thing. Needs more guns." "It already has 2 heavy flamers," Malog points out. "Yeah, but they ain't working right now. And besides, you can never have too much Dakar. That's just common sense, that is." Over the next several days, the mechs systematically repair and modify Malog. They reconnect his locomotion systems using a mix of appropriate parts, salvaged from wrecked vehicles, and completely inappropriate parts that work anyway, because the Orks expect them to. They restore power to his weapons, though they also add additional guns that they weld directly to his chassis, including a rocket launcher that has no business being there. But it's the cosmetic changes that really drive home to Malog what he's gotten himself into. The Orks are offended by his appearance. He's covered in chaos symbols, spikes pointing in weird directions, and colors that the Orks find deeply unpleasant. "We gotta repaint this thing," Grotbog declares. "Can't have it looking all chaotic. That ain't proper." "What color should we paint it?" a mech asks. "Red. Red makes things go faster, but it's already got some red on it from the chaos gits." "Yeah, but not enough. We paint the whole thing red, except for the shooters. Those can be black, and we put the clan symbol on it so everyone knows whose it belongs to." Malog tries to object. "I would prefer not to be painted red." "Tough," Grotbog responds cheerfully. "You're one of us now, so you gotta look proper. Red makes you faster, and you need to be faster, because you're a big stompy thing, and big stompy things should be stomping all over their enemy." They proceed to paint him. Not carefully or artistically, but with generous splashes of red paint applied with industrial sprayers and large brushes. They paint over the chaos symbols, though some of them still show through the red. They add crude clan symbols and orky glyphs, working with genuine artistic enthusiasm, even if the results are objectively terrible. "Much better," Grotbog declares when they're done. "Now you look like proper Ork stuff." Malog, viewing himself through his optical sensors, realizes he looks absolutely ridiculous. The sophisticated, terror-inducing appearance of a hellbrute has been replaced with a garish red war machine covered in orky symbols and with random guns bolted to his chassis at odd angles. He should be humiliated, but instead, he realizes he's feeling something he hasn't felt in millennia: amusement. The absurdity of his situation, the cheerful incompetence of the Ork repairs, the sheer wrongness of being repainted red by Xenos who think it'll make him go faster. It's all so ridiculous that some fragment of his shattered psyche actually finds it funny. "You have made modifications," he observes dryly. "Yeah, you're all fixed up now, ready to test you out in a proper fight." The mechs roll him out of the workshop to cheers from the assembled orcs. He's still clearly not an orc. His shape is all wrong, he's still obviously a Dreadnought chassis, and he speaks in precise High Gothic rather than Orcish. But he's been made orky through the application of red paint, extra guns, and enthusiastic welding. Whether that's enough to truly integrate him into the warband remains to be seen. The Hellbrutes proposition. Why join them? Before we go further into what happens with Malog and the Orks, we need to address a crucial question. Why would a Chaos Dreadnought even want to join an Orc warband in the first place? What could possibly motivate such a decision? The answer lies in understanding just how torturous existence as a Hellbrute truly is, and how that compares to what the Orcs might offer. Malog spent 3,000 years serving various Chaos Lords. During that time, he fought in countless battles across the galaxy. Between battles, he was chained in darkness, his sarcophagus disconnected from his body, and left in storage like a piece of equipment, rather than a warrior with consciousness and agency. He had no say in when he fought, where he fought, or who he fought. He was simply activated when needed, and deactivated when not, his consciousness subjected to an endless cycle of violent awakening and forced dormancy. The madness that afflicts all Hellbrutes consumed much of his mind. He exists in a state of constant rage, his thoughts fragmenting under the psychic pressure of his imprisonment. But beneath the madness, some core of his identity persisted. The part that remembered being a space marine of the Iron Warriors, a warrior who chose to follow Horus and turn against the Emperor. That choice had been his own, but every choice since then had been stripped away, his agency sacrificed on the altar of his warband's military needs. The Chaos Lords he served viewed him as a weapon, nothing more. When he fought well, he was not praised. Weapons are expected to function properly. When his equipment needed maintenance, it was not provided out of respect, but out of practical necessity, the same way you oil a gun to keep it functioning. And when he was no longer immediately needed, he was stored away without a second thought for his continued consciousness and suffering. This is the existence that all Chaos Dreadnoughts endure, an existence so horrible that some actively welcome destruction in battle as release from their torment. The few who retain enough sanity to comprehend their situation find themselves trapped with no hope of escape, no possibility of change, no prospect of anything different for the remainder of their existence. But then, Malog encountered the Orks, and everything changed. The Orks didn't chain him in darkness. They left him conscious and aware. They talked to him, asked him questions, treated him like a being with opinions rather than an object to be used. When they worked on repairing him, they did so with enthusiasm and genuine interest in making him function better, not out of cold practicality, but because they found him fascinating. They argued about how best to fix him, laughed when repairs went wrong, celebrated when systems came back online. Most importantly, they gave him a choice. Grotbog asked what he wanted. They let him participate in decisions about his own repairs. They painted him red because they thought it would make him better, and when he objected, they explained their reasoning rather than simply overriding his objections with force. This is why Malog wants to join them. Not because Orcs offer a better life in objective terms. Being an Orc's war machine is hardly paradise. But because they offer something he hasn't had in 3,000 years. Agency. They're offering him the chance to be something other than a tool, to participate in deciding his own fate, to exist as more than just a weapon that's activated and deactivated at someone else's convenience. There's another, factor 2, one that Malog might not fully consciously recognize. The WAG field is having an effect on him. The psychic energy of thousands of Orcs gathered together, all of them projecting their simple, straightforward desires for violence and excitement, is washing over his consciousness like a cleansing wave. It's not purifying him. The chaos corruption runs too deep for that. But it's drowning out some of the whispers of the warp, dampening the influence of the chaos gods that has been driving him toward madness. In the presence of the Orcs, Malog's thoughts are clearer than they've been in millennia. The rage is still there, the madness still present, but it's muted, made manageable by the overwhelming Orky psychic presence. He can think more clearly, can access memories and mental processes that have been buried under layers of corruption and insanity. The Wah field isn't healing him, but it's giving him a reprieve from the worst of his condition. Additionally, there's the simple fact that the Orks are offering him something his Chaos Masters never did: membership in something that resembles a community. Orks fight together, celebrate together, compete with each other in ways that, while violent, are at least comprehensible and consistent. There are rules in Ork society, even if those rules mostly amount to might makes right and loot everything. There's a clear hierarchy based on observable strength rather than Byzantine political maneuvering. And there's a refreshing honesty in how Orks relate to each other. They want to fight, they say they want to fight, and then they fight. No schemes, no plots, no betrayals born of theological disagreements or personal ambition. For someone who's spent 3,000 years serving Chaos Space Marines, where betrayal is standard operating procedure, and every interaction is laden with hidden agendas and warp-spawned manipulation, the straightforward nature of Ork society is almost relaxing. An Ork who says he's going to fight you is going to fight you. An Ork who says you're part of his warband means it. There's no deeper game being played, no hidden corruption waiting to consume you from within. Of course, Malog's rational mind recognizes the absurdity of his situation. He's a hellbrute, a war machine of chaos, contemplating joining a Xenos warband as if he were signing up for a new employer. By any reasonable standard, this shouldn't even be possible. Chaos corruption and Ork culture are fundamentally incompatible. He's saturated with the energies of the warp, literally fused with demonic essence, while the Orks are protected from chaos by their own gods and their psychic field. But maybe that's exactly why it might work. The Orks aren't going to be corrupted by him. They're too Orky for that. And their influence might actually suppress his chaos corruption, or at least make it manageable. He won't be cured, won't be redeemed, but he might be functional in a way he hasn't been for millennia. So when Grotbog asks him, "You want to be one of the boys?" Malog doesn't hesitate. "Yes," he says simply. "I do." The mechs cheer, not because they understand the significance of what Malog is saying, but because they're excited about having a new toy to play with and modify. But Malog understands perfectly. He's choosing this. For the first time in 3,000 years, he's making a choice about his own fate. It might be a terrible choice. It might lead to disaster. But it's his choice. And that makes all the difference. The philosophical problem: can this even work? Before we continue with what happens to Malog and the Orks, we need to address the fundamental philosophical and metaphysical problems with this scenario. Can a chaos-corrupted being actually join an Ork warband? What are the implications for both parties? And what does the law actually say about such situations? The simple answer is that this probably shouldn't be possible according to strict 40k law. Chaos corruption and Ork culture are, in most ways, incompatible. But let's dig into why, and whether there might be edge cases where something like this could theoretically occur. First, let's consider the chaos corruption itself. Malog isn't just a former Chaos Space Marine, he's a hellbrute, meaning his flesh has literally merged with his war machine, and that merger was facilitated by warp energies. His existence is sustained by chaos. The machine spirits that once guided his Dreadnought chassis have been corrupted into something malevolent and semi-demonic. He is, in a very real sense, partially made of chaos. Normally, extended exposure to something this thoroughly corrupted would be dangerous for any living being. Chaos is insidious. It seeps into cracks, exploits weaknesses, corrupts from within. Even touching chaos-tainted objects can be dangerous for unprotected humans. Being in proximity to a hellbrute should, by rights, expose anyone nearby to warp energies that could warp their minds and souls. But Orks aren't normal living beings. They're genetically engineered weapons created by the old ones, and part of that engineering was making them resistant to warp corruption. Their souls are different from human souls, blunter, simpler, less susceptible to the complex emotions that chaos feeds upon. An orc doesn't experience existential despair, doesn't succumb to elaborate ambitions, doesn't feel pleasure in the refined ways that Slaanesh requires. An orc just wants to fight, and that desire is too straightforward for chaos to properly manipulate. Moreover, orcs have their own warp entities, Gork and Mork. These twin gods exist in the Imperium and are sustained by the collective belief of all orcs everywhere. They're not chaos gods, they're something else entirely, reflections of the orcish psyche rather than corruptions of it. The presence of Gork and Mork in the warp provides a buffer between orcs and chaos, a competing psychic influence that keeps chaos from gaining purchase on orcish souls. The WH40K field itself acts as additional protection. When orcs gather in large numbers, the Gestalt psychic energy they generate creates a tangible field that affects reality in their vicinity. This field makes orc technology work, empowers weird boys with psychic abilities, and crucially, it drowns out other psychic influences. In the presence of a strong WH40K field, chaos whispers become background noise, drowned out by the overwhelming orky psychic presence. So theoretically, the orcs in Gorfang's warband aren't at significant risk of corruption from Malog. The WH40K field protects them. Their own simple psyches provide natural resistance, and Gork and Mork offer spiritual protection against chaos influence. They could be in proximity to a hellbrute without succumbing to its corrupting presence. But what about the reverse? What effect does the WH40K field have on Malog? This is where things get really interesting. Chaos corruption isn't invulnerable to other psychic influences. The chaos gods are powerful, but they're not omnipotent, and their influence can be blocked, suppressed, or even reversed under the right circumstances. The Emperor's psychic might can burn away chaos corruption. Eldar runes and psychic discipline can shield against chaos. Even faith, in the case of particularly devout Imperial citizens, can provide some protection. The WH40K field isn't as sophisticated as Eldar psychic arts or as powerful as the Emperor's might, but it's present and constant. Malog would be immersed in orky psychic energy 24 hours a day, every day. That energy doesn't care about chaos. It doesn't recognize chaos as anything special or particularly important. It just emanates from thousands of orcs who want to fight and who believe their stuff works because it should work. This overwhelming presence of alien psychic energy might actually suppress Malog's chaos corruption, or at least make it less active. It's not purifying him. The changes that have been wrought on him are too fundamental for that. But it might quiet the whispers of the warp, might make the influence of the chaos gods less immediate and overwhelming. In gaming terms, it's like having a constant psychic white noise that drowns out more subtle signals. There's also the question of Malog's own psyche. He's insane, yes, all hellbrutes are. But insanity isn't the same as complete loss of consciousness or agency. Some part of him still remembers being a space marine, still remembers making choices and having desires beyond simple service to chaos. That part of him is choosing to align with the Orks, and choice matters in the Warhammer 40k universe. The Chaos gods gain power from worship and service, but they don't have absolute control over their followers. It's possible for chaos-corrupted beings to resist, to make different choices, especially if they're supported by powerful alternate psychic influences. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The lore suggests this shouldn't happen. There are virtually no recorded instances of chaos beings successfully integrating with orc warbands. The few cases of chaos-corrupted orcs that exist in the lore are usually isolated individuals who have been separated from other orcs for extended periods, and even those are extremely rare. The orcs themselves would view such corruption as deeply un-orky and would typically kill any corrupted orc on sight. But Malog isn't an orc. He's a war machine that happens to be piloted by a corrupted space marine. The Orks don't view him as one of their own. They view him as a particularly interesting piece of looted equipment that can talk and fight. That's a crucial distinction. They're not accepting a corrupted Ork into their ranks. They're adopting a functional weapon that happened to ask nicely. This is actually consistent with Ork behavior. Orks will loot and use virtually any technology they can get their hands on, regardless of origin. They've been known to loot Imperial vehicles, Tau battlesuits, Elder tanks, and yes, even Chaos equipment. They don't care about the ideological or spiritual implications of using such equipment. They care about whether it's shooty enough and whether it looks good painted red. From the Ork perspective, Malog is just a really fancy looted war machine that happens to have opinions. The fact that he's corrupted by chaos is mildly interesting, but not particularly concerning. They've painted him red and added more dakka, which makes him properly Orky, regardless of his origins. There's one more factor to consider: the precedent of other strange alliances in 40k lore. The universe has seen Imperial forces cooperate with Tau against Tyrannid invasions. It has seen Eldar working alongside humans to stop Chaos incursions. It has even seen brief truces between Imperium and Chaos forces when faced with greater threats. The galaxy is vast and strange, and desperate circumstances create unusual alliances. This isn't a formal alliance. It's one insane hellbrute choosing to join an Ork warband because it's marginally better than his previous existence. It's the Orks accepting him because he's useful and interesting. Neither party is compromising their core beliefs or identity. The Orks are still Orks, just with a new toy. Malog is still corrupted by chaos, just surrounded by psychic energy that makes that corruption less overwhelming. Could it work long term? That's questionable. Could it work in the short term for a few battles or even a few years? Maybe. Could it happen in the wider 40k universe outside this specific scenario? Probably not often, if ever. But in this particular case, with these particular circumstances, we can at least construct a scenario where it's not completely impossible. And sometimes, in the grim darkness of the far future, not completely impossible is as good as it gets. The integration process. Teaching a hellbrute to be Orky. With the philosophical groundwork laid and the mech's repairs complete, we now face the practical challenge. How do you integrate a Chaos Dreadnought into an Ork warband? How do you take a being that spent 3,000 years serving chaos and turn it into something that can function alongside Orks without causing disaster? The answer, as with most things involving Orks, involves a combination of violence, enthusiasm, and a complete lack of concern for conventional limitations. Grotbog appoints himself as Malog's primary handler, partly because he's the big mech who repaired him, and partly because he finds the whole situation endlessly fascinating. The first order of business is teaching Malog how to actually move with his Ork-repaired systems. The cable from the Lehman Russ controls his left leg differently than his original servos. The rocket launcher they bolted to his shoulder has thrown off his balance, and the fresh coat of red paint has somehow actually made him faster, which is disorienting given that he logically knows paint doesn't affect locomotive performance. "All right, let's get you walking proper," Grotbog announces. "Try taking a step." Malog attempts to walk and immediately stumbles, his repaired legs responding differently than he expects. He crashes into a pile of scrap metal, sending it flying in all directions. The watching Orks roar with laughter. "Not like that! You gotta stomp! Big stompy thing needs big stompy steps, like this!" Grotbog demonstrates by stomping around in an exaggerated manner that would look ridiculous on anyone but an Ork. Malog tries again, this time with heavier, more deliberate steps. To his surprise, it works better. The Ork-modified systems seem to respond better to blunt, forceful commands, rather than the precise control he's used to. It's as if the repairs want to be used crudely, as if subtlety is somehow offensive to them. Over the next several days, Grotbog puts Malog through what can only be described as Ork training. This involves learning to roar properly when charging into combat, Malog's Vox speakers can produce the mechanical scream of a hellbrute, but Grotbog insists this isn't orky enough. You gotta yell, "Wag!" Try it. Wag, Malog says flatly through his speakers. Nah, you gotta mean it. Wag! Grotbog demonstrates, the sound echoing across the camp. Wag! Malog tries again, putting more energy into it. Better. Keep practicing. Learning to fight in the Ork style, which means less precision shooting and more charging directly at enemies while firing everything at once. Grotbog sets up practice targets and makes Malog attack them repeatedly until he's learned to advance while shooting rather than taking up static positions. Understanding Ork command structure, which is remarkably simple. Do what the biggest Ork says, unless you're going to challenge him for leadership, in which case, you fight him. If you win, you're in charge. If you lose, you're dead. This is actually easier for Malog to understand than the complex hierarchies of Chaos Space Marine warbands. Learning which Orks are which. This is harder than it sounds because Orks all look similar to non-Orks, and Malog's optical sensors weren't designed to distinguish between greenskins. Grotbog takes to painting identifying marks on important Orks so Malog can recognize them. That's the war boss. You see them extra boss pole? That means he's the biggest. That knob over there, he's in charge of the boys on the left flank. That other one, he's the one who likes to fight up close with his chopper. But the biggest challenge is teaching Malog to think like an Ork, or at least to interact with Orks in ways they understand and appreciate. Orks respect strength, direct action, and enthusiasm for violence. They don't respect complexity, subtlety, or hesitation. When Malog tries to explain tactical considerations or suggest strategic approaches, the Ork's eyes glaze over. But when he simply points at an enemy and says, "I will destroy that," they cheer and understand perfectly. Orks also have a completely different relationship with their equipment than Chaos Space Marines do. A Chaos Space Marine views his armor and weapons as sacred, part of his identity, forged over centuries of service. An Ork views his equipment as something to be constantly modified, improved, and occasionally hit with a wrench when it stops working. The idea that Malog might object to further modifications is simply not comprehensible to them. "We's thinking of adding more armor plates," Grotbog announces one day. "That will restrict my mobility," Malog points out. "Yeah, but you'll be tougher, and mobility ain't that important when you're a big stompy thing. You're supposed to walk through the enemy, not around them." They add the armor plates anyway, welding thick sheets of scrap metal to Malog's chassis in a pattern that makes no aesthetic or engineering sense, but somehow provides decent protection. Malog has learned to stop objecting to such modifications. The Orks are going to do what they want regardless, and arguing just confuses them. The biggest surprise for Malog is how the other Orks react to him. He expected hostility, suspicion, maybe even outright attacks. What he gets instead is curiosity and enthusiasm. Orks keep coming up to examine him, asking questions, poking at his armor, suggesting modifications. They treat him like a particularly interesting piece of kit that their mech produced, something to be proud of and show off to other warbands. "Hey, you see our big stompy thing?" one Ork boasts to a neighboring clan. "He can talk, and he's got all kinds of shooters. Bet your clan ain't got nothing like that." The other clan's Orks gather around to examine Malog, equally impressed. "That's proper cunning, that is. Where'd you get him?" "Looted him from the Chaos Gits. He was just laying there, so we fixed him up." There's no sense of corruption or danger in how the Orks relate to him. To them, he's just loot that happens to be ambulatory and chatty. The fact that he's covered in Chaos iconography beneath the red paint and literally fused with warp-spawned machinery doesn't register as particularly significant. They've looted stuff before. This is just bigger and more interesting than usual. Malog gradually begins to understand something profound. The Orks literally don't care about chaos. Not in a "we're brave enough to face it" way or a "we're strong enough to resist it" way, but in a fundamental this is not relevant to our interests way. They're not afraid of chaos corruption because they don't really understand what chaos corruption is. Their entire worldview is so alien to the concepts chaos manipulates that there's no common ground for corruption to take root. This realization is both liberating and disturbing. For 3,000 years, Malog has existed in universes where chaos was the dominant concern, either serving it as part of a chaos warband or fighting against it as an iron warrior before his fall. The idea that there's a species that simply doesn't care, that views the powers of the warp as no more significant than any other enemy to fight, is difficult to process. But it also means he can exist among them without the constant pressure of chaos expectation. The chaos gods want worship, want service, want acknowledgement. The Orks just want him to shoot things and stomp on enemies. It's a simpler arrangement, and simplicity is something Malog has learned to appreciate after millennia of chaos complexity. After a few weeks of this integration process, Grotbog declares Malog ready for his first real test, an actual battle alongside the warband. This will determine whether all the repairs, training, and integration have been successful, or whether the Hellbrute will revert to his chaotic nature and need to be scrapped after all. Alright, tomorrow we's going to raid that Yumi outpost down south, Grotbog explains. You's gonna come with us, stick with my mob, stomp any Humies that get in the way, and try not to shoot any of the boys. Can you do that? Yes, Malog responds. And for the first time in longer than he can remember, he actually means it. He's not being forced to fight, not being activated against his will. He's choosing to participate in this battle, to prove himself to the warband, to earn his place among them. It's a strange feeling, but not an entirely unpleasant one. The next day, as the Orks gather for the raid, Malog takes his position among them. He's painted red, covered in Orky glyphs, equipped with looted weapons that shouldn't work but do, and surrounded by thousands of enthusiastic greenskins who've accepted him as their big, stompy thing. His existence has gone from being a tool of Chaos Lords to being the pet project of an Ork warband. It's absurd. It's probably doomed to failure. But for now, in this moment, Malog allows himself to feel something he hasn't felt since before his interment as a Hellbrute. Anticipation, not just for the violence to come, but for what he might prove, what he might become in this bizarre new existence he's chosen for himself. Wag! The Orks roar as they begin their advance. Wag! Malog adds through his Vox speakers, with significantly more enthusiasm than his first attempt. Combat scenarios. The Hellbrute proves himself. The Imperial outpost that Gorfang's warband attacks is a standard frontier garrison. Reinforced walls, heavy bolter emplacements, a small detachment of Astra Militarum soldiers, and a single Lehman Russ tank. It's meant to provide early warning of Xenos incursions and hold long enough for reinforcements to arrive. It's not meant to withstand a full Ork. Whack! The Orks approach with their typical subtlety, which is to say none at all. Trucks and battle wagons race across the plains toward the outpost, Orks hanging off every surface and firing wildly. Defcopters scream overhead. Mobs of boys run alongside the vehicles, roaring with excitement at the prospect of a proper scrap. Malog advances with Grotbog's mob of looters and burner boys, his refurbished systems straining to keep up with the Orks' aggressive pace. His first instinct is to analyze the defensive positions, identify weak points, coordinate with other units for a combined assault. This is how Iron Warriors fought, with careful planning and combined arms tactics. But that's not how Orks fight. That's the place, Grotbog shouts, pointing at the outpost. We go in, we crump the Yumis, we take all the good stuff, easy. There are defensive emplacements covering the approaches, Malog observes. Heavy bolters in the towers, possible artillery positions behind the walls. A coordinated assault on multiple vectors would... What? Nah, we just go straight at 'em. Shooting stuff and yelling real loud. Always works. The Orks charge directly at the outpost's main gate. The Imperial defenders open fire, their discipline evident in controlled bursts from the wall-mounted heavy bolters. Orks fall. their crude armor insufficient against sustained heavy weapons fire. But for every orc that drops, 3 more charge forward, and the ones who fall just make the others more excited about the fight. Marlow experiences a moment of cognitive dissonance. This is tactically insane. The orcs are taking unnecessary casualties, attacking fortified positions without suppressing fire or combined arms support. They should be coordinating their assault, using their vehicles to breach the walls while infantry suppresses the defenders. But it's working anyway. The sheer momentum of the orc charge is overwhelming the defenders. The humans are shooting as fast as they can, but there are just too many orcs, and the greenskins are completely undaunted by casualties. They're not running from the heavy bolter fire. They're running toward it, eager to get close enough to use their own weapons and chopper. "Come on, you big red thing!" Grotbog yells at Marlog. "Start shooting!" Marlog opens fire. His heavy flamers sweep across the wall, forcing defenders to abandon their positions or be immolated. The rocket launcher the mechs bolted to his shoulder fires, sending a crude missile arcing toward a tower. The missile wobbles in flight, spiraling drunkenly before impacting the tower's base with a satisfying explosion. The structure tilts, cracks and collapses, taking the heavy bolter crew with it. The orcs around him cheer. "That's the way! More Dakar!" Something changes in Marlog at that moment. For 3,000 years, he's fought because he was activated and pointed at enemies. The violence was compulsory, joyless, an expression of his madness rather than his will. But right now, fighting alongside the orcs, he realizes he's choosing this. He's not being forced to attack these Imperial positions. He's doing it because he's part of this warband, because this is what the warband is doing, because this is his role now. And surprisingly, horrifyingly, wonderfully, he's enjoying it. Not in the way a Horn berserker enjoys bloodshed, with sophisticated appreciation for death and carnage, but in the simple, straightforward way the orcs enjoy it. Because fighting is fun, because explosions are exciting, because stomping on enemies makes a satisfying crunch sound. There's no complex philosophy here, no offering to dark gods, no deeper meaning. Just violence for its own sake, enthusiastically embraced. Marlog charges toward the gate, his repaired locomotion systems carrying him forward with stomping strides. His power fist connects with the reinforced gate, the disruption field tearing through metal and concrete. The gate buckles, cracks, and finally explodes inward under his assault. Orcs pour through the breach, screaming their enthusiasm. Inside the compound, the fighting becomes even more chaotic. Imperial guardsmen try to establish defensive lines, but the orcs just overwhelm them through sheer numbers and ferocity. The Lehman Russ tank emerges from a bunker, its battle cannon traversing toward the main mass of orcs. Marlog spots it immediately. "Tank!" he announces over the vox. "What?" Grotbog responds. "Tank!" Marlog repeats, and charges the vehicle before the orcs can respond. His approach is not sophisticated. He doesn't maneuver for flanking shots or try to disable its tracks. He just runs straight at it, weathering its heavy bolter fire, and slams his power fist into its front armor. The blow caves in the glacis plate. His flamers wash over the vehicle, forcing the crew to close the hatches. He strikes again and again, pounding on the tank with single-minded determination until its armor ruptures and internal systems begin to fail. The Lehman Russ attempts to reverse, but it's too late. Marlog grabs the tank's turret with both hands and simply tears it off the chassis with a screech of rending metal. The crew attempts to bail out. Orcs swarm over them immediately, eager to claim their own. Kills. "That was brilliant!" Grotbog shouts, running up to examine the wrecked tank. "You just grabbed it and pulled bits off. Can we keep the tracks? The treads look like they'd work for something." The battle continues for another hour, but the outcome is never in doubt. The orcs overwhelm the defenders through sheer weight of numbers, take everything not bolted down, and many things that are, and celebrate their victory with typical orc enthusiasm. Marlog participates in the looting, helping the mechs identify useful components and equipment worth salvaging. As they return to camp, Grotbog walks alongside Malog with evident satisfaction. "You did good. Proper stompy, lots of dakka, smashed up that tank real nice. The boss'll be pleased." "It was satisfactory," Malog responds, trying to maintain some dignity despite being covered in scorch marks and having a grot sitting on his shoulder examining his optical sensors. But internally, he's processing a realization that shakes him to his core. That battle was the most engaged he's felt in millennia. Fighting alongside the Orks, without the weight of chaos expectation or the torment of his master's demands, he actually experienced something approaching satisfaction. Not the hollow fulfillment of serving the chaos gods, but genuine enjoyment of the act of combat itself. This isn't how a Chaos Space Marine should think. This isn't how a servant of the ruinous powers is supposed to feel. He should be craving the complex pleasures of chaos worship, the sophisticated satisfaction of advancing dark agendas. Instead, he's pleased that he successfully destroyed a tank, and that the Orks around him are happy with his performance. The WAG field is definitely affecting him, dampening his chaos corruption, simplifying his desires. But more than that, being part of the warband is giving him something he's been missing, purpose that comes from his own choices, rather than being imposed from above. The other Orks start treating him differently after that first battle. Before, he was the weird metal thing that the mechs were playing with. Now, he's the weird metal thing that can really fight. Orks who were indifferent before now greet him, ask him to help with tasks, even seek his advice on certain matters, usually related to destroying fortifications or armored targets, which he's evidently good at. "Hey, big red thing," an Ork calls out a few days later. "We's gonna hit another Yumi place. You wanna come smash things?" "Yes," Marlog responds without hesitation. The Ork grins. "Brilliant. You really are getting proper Orky, ain't ya?" And to his surprise, Marlog realizes that maybe he is. The red paint, the extra guns, the crude repairs, they're not just cosmetic. They're actually changing how he thinks, how he approaches combat, how he relates to the world around him. The Wah field is rewriting his baseline reality, making him more Orky by simple proximity and exposure. Should this terrify him? Probably. But it doesn't, because being Orky is better than being a chained hellbrute, and right now, that's all that matters. Long-term consequences. What happens next? As weeks turn into months, Marlog becomes an established, if unusual, member of Gorfang's warband. He participates in raids, helps with heavy lifting during camp moves, and even serves as a mobile platform for Grotbog to work on other projects. The Orks have fully accepted him as their big, red, stompy thing, and he's found a strange form of contentment in his new role. But this unusual arrangement can't exist in a vacuum. The galaxy is a big place, and word of an Ork warband with a tame hellbrute spreads. Other factions begin taking notice, and not all of them are pleased. First, there's the reaction of other Ork clans. When Gorfang's warband encounters other greenskin forces, the presence of Marlog generates intense curiosity. Some war bosses are impressed and want to know where they can get their own big stompy thing. Others are suspicious, viewing Marlog as too chaotic and not properly Orky. A few challenges are issued, Ork fashion, resulting in Marlog having to prove himself in combat against skeptical greenskins. These fights are always spectacles. Orks gather around to watch as Marlog faces off against Death Dreads, Killer Cans, or even other Orks' looted vehicles. He wins most of these contests through a combination of his sophisticated systems, however corrupted they may be, and the Ork modifications that have been heaped upon him. Each victory cements his reputation as proper Ork equipment, even if his origins remain suspect. But it's the reactions of other species that prove more problematic. Imperial forces that encounter the warband are confused and horrified in equal measure. Reports filter back to regional command centers about an Ork force accompanied by what appears to be a Chaos Dreadnought fighting alongside them. These reports are initially dismissed as censor errors or the confused accounts of traumatized survivors. Surely no Ork would ally with Chaos. Surely no Chaos war machine would serve Xenos. But the reports keep coming, consistent enough that they can't be ignored. Eventually, the Inquisition takes an interest. An inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos dispatches a team to investigate, concerned that this represents a new form of chaos corruption that somehow infiltrated Ork society. The Ordo Malleus also takes note, worried about a Chaos Dreadnought operating outside the normal parameters of Chaos operations. When Imperial kill teams attempt to engage the warband specifically to eliminate Marlog, they discover that killing him is substantially more difficult than killing a normal Hellbrute. Not because he's become more powerful, but because he's surrounded by hundreds of Orks who've gotten quite attached to their big stompy thing and don't appreciate outsiders trying to break it. The Orks defend Marlog with the same enthusiasm. They defend their favorite battle wagons, which is to say, with overwhelming force and no regard for their own safety. Chaos forces that encounter Gorfang's warband have even stronger reactions. To them, Marlog's presence among the Orks is a betrayal of the highest order. A servant of Chaos doesn't just join Xenos warbands. Hellbrutes are supposed to be eternally loyal to Chaos, trapped in service until destroyed in battle. The fact that one has apparently defected to greenskins is deeply offensive to the natural order of things. Several Chaos warbands attempt to reclaim Marlog, sending forces to capture or destroy their wayward brother. These attempts uniformly fail, usually because the Chaos forces underestimate just how many Orks are willing to fight to keep their metal friend. One Iron Warriors warband, feeling particularly insulted that one of their ancient brothers has fallen so low, launches a full assault specifically to eliminate Marlog. The resulting battle is massive and indecisive. The Iron Warriors deploy with their characteristic precision, establishing kill zones and advancing under fire support. But the Orks don't fight the way the Iron Warriors expect, throwing massive numbers of boys at defensive positions and overwhelming them through sheer momentum. Marlog himself finds himself fighting against his own former legion, a surreal experience that crystallizes just how far he's diverged from his origins. The Iron Warriors eventually withdraw after failing to capture or kill him, but not before their Warsmith broadcasts a message to Marlog. "You are a disgrace to the Iron. You have fallen lower than any traitor to the Imperium ever has, serving Xenos filth. When we meet again, we will destroy you utterly." Marlog's response, delivered through his Ork-modified Vox speakers, is simple. "I no longer serve masters who chain me in darkness. I choose this, and that makes me freer than you." The Warsmith's response is unprintable, but the most significant consequence of Marlog's integration with the Orks is the effect it has on him personally. As months pass, the WAG field continues to work on him, slowly but inexorably changing his psychological state. The constant exposure to Orky psychic energy dampens his chaos corruption, not eliminating it, but making it manageable. The whispers of the warp that have tormented him for millennia become background noise, easily ignored in favor of more immediate concerns like, where's the next fight? And, did Grotbog add more armor plates again? His personality, what remains of it after millennia of madness, begins to stabilize. He's still insane by most standards. Spending 3,000 years as a Hellbrute leaves permanent marks that can't be erased. But his insanity becomes more directed, more functional. Instead of the chaotic rage that characterizes most Hellbrutes, he develops something closer to Ork-style enthusiasm for violence. He's not sane, but he's sane in specifically Orky ways that make him effective, and even oddly pleasant to be around by Ork standards. The chaos corruption itself remains. His flesh is still fused with his war machine, his systems are still powered by warp energies, and he still bears the marks of millennia of service to the ruinous powers. But that corruption is no longer active, no longer progressing. It's like a scar rather than an open wound, present, permanent, but not currently causing harm. Grotborg observes these changes with scientific interest. "You know, you're not nearly as twitchy as you used to be," he comments one day while performing routine maintenance. "And you don't scream about the voices in your head no more." "The voices are still there," Marlog responds, "but they're quieter, easier to ignore." "That's the wah for you. Fixes all sort of things. Made me Spanner Grobit stop thinking he was a squig once. Well, mostly stop." "I'm becoming more orky." Marlog states this as simple fact rather than concern. "Course you are. You're one of us now. Look at you. Red paint, loads of dakka, proper stompy locomotion. You're practically an honorary orc." There's something both troubling and comforting about this assessment. Malog the Hellbrute is disappearing, gradually being replaced by Big Red, the Orc warband's favourite stompy thing. His identity as an Iron Warrior's legionary, his service to chaos, his entire existence before the Orcs. It's all fading into irrelevance compared to his current purpose. Should he care about this? Should he be fighting to maintain his original identity? Probably, but he doesn't. Because being Big Red, Gorfang's big stompy thing that can talk and knows how to break tanks real good, is infinitely preferable to being a nameless Hellbrute chained in darkness between battles. Gorfang himself seems to have come to terms with Malog's presence. The warboss initially viewed him as a curiosity, then as useful equipment, and now as something approaching a valued member of the warband. When other warbosses question his decision to keep a chaos thing around, Gorfang's response is simple. He fights good, he don't cause trouble, and he makes the boys happy. That's all that matters. It's perhaps the most insightful statement anyone has made about the entire situation. In Orc society, complex questions of ideology, corruption, and identity don't matter. What matters is, can you fight? Do you cause problems? And do you fit in with the boys? Marlog can fight exceptionally well. He doesn't cause problems anymore, and the boys have accepted him. Therefore, he's part of the warband. It's that simple. Of course, this situation can't last forever. Hellbrutes are built to last, but nothing lasts forever in the 40k universe. Eventually, Malog will fall in battle, or his systems will finally fail beyond even Orc repair capabilities, or some external force will end this strange alliance. But until that day comes, he continues to serve Gorfang's warband as their big, red, stompy thing, fighting alongside Orcs, being maintained by mech boys and slowly becoming more orky with each passing day. It's not the fate he would have chosen 3,000 years ago, when he was still a proud Iron Warrior, but it's infinitely better than the fate that was forced upon him when he became a Hellbrute. And in the end, that's all that really matters. Lore conflicts and fan theories, why this shouldn't work, but we're exploring it anyway. Let's be completely honest. What we've explored in this video shouldn't actually be possible according to most interpretations of Warhammer 40k lore. The scenario requires so many exceptional circumstances and convenient coincidences that it strains believability even by 40k standards, which is saying something for a universe that includes Orcs making purple vehicles invisible by painting them. So let's break down all the ways this scenario contradicts established lore, and then explore why we might choose to overlook those contradictions for the sake of an interesting thought experiment. First, the fundamental problem. Chaos corruption doesn't work this way. When a Space Marine falls to chaos and becomes fused with a Hellbrute, that corruption is permanent and progressive. It's not something that can be suppressed or reversed through exposure to alternative psychic energies. The Chaos Gods don't lose their grip on servants just because those servants are hanging out with Orcs. If anything, they'd try even harder to reclaim or destroy such a heretic. Hellbrutes, specifically, are supposed to be in a state of constant madness and rage. They're chained between battles because they'll attack anything nearby, including their own allies. The idea that a Hellbrute could communicate coherently enough to negotiate with Orcs, let alone integrate into their warband, contradicts the established lore about how these creatures function. They're not rational beings capable of making long-term plans. They're psychotic war machines that barely remember they were once Space Marines. The Orks, meanwhile, have a well-established resistance to chaos, but that resistance comes with its own limitations. Orks can't be corrupted by chaos because their psyches are too simple, and their connection to Gork and Mork is too strong. But that same simplicity should make them immediately hostile to anything obviously chaotic. Orks might not understand the philosophical implications of chaos, but they can recognize enemies when they see them, and a screaming hellbrute covered in chaos symbols should register as enemy that needs crumping. Additionally, the lore has very few examples of successful integration between chaos forces and other factions, Ork or otherwise. Chaos forces sometimes cooperate with other groups temporarily when facing common enemies, but these are always alliances of convenience that fall apart as soon as the immediate threat is dealt with. The idea of a Chaos Dreadnought permanently joining an Ork warband has no precedent in official lore. The Wah field, while powerful, isn't portrayed as having cleansing or purifying properties. It makes Ork technology work and empowers weird boys, but there's no suggestion in the lore that it can suppress chaos corruption in others. If it could, the Orks would be the perfect anti-chaos force in the galaxy, and clearly, that's not how they're portrayed. They're resistant to chaos, but not a cure for it. Furthermore, the Orks' own nature should make this integration impossible, even if all the other factors lined up perfectly. Orks are fundamentally xenophobic. They fight everyone, including themselves. The idea that they'd accept a non-Ork as a member of their warband, even a useful one, contradicts their basic tribal identity. They might loot enemy equipment, but they don't adopt enemy warriors as brothers in arms. So why have we spent this entire video exploring a scenario that contradicts so much established lore? Because Warhammer 40k is vast enough, strange enough, and has enough contradictory sources that you can find justification for almost anything if you look hard enough. The galaxy is immense, spanning millions of worlds across thousands of years. The Imperium doesn't keep perfect records. The Inquisition suppresses information about events that don't fit their understanding of the universe. Chaos does strange and unprecedented things, and Orks are, by their very nature, unpredictable and prone to doing things that shouldn't be possible. In a universe where Orks can make vehicles go faster by painting them red, where belief can literally reshape reality, where chaos can corrupt anything given enough time and exposure, is it really impossible that one specific hellbrute, under very specific circumstances, might find himself adopted by an Ork warband? Is it so unthinkable that the Orks' resistance to chaos might suppress corruption just enough for such an arrangement to be temporarily viable? The official answer is probably yes. It's impossible. But 40k has always had room for homebrew scenarios, for what-if explorations that push against the boundaries of established lore. That's part of the appeal of the setting. It's so big and so strange that you can imagine almost anything happening somewhere, somewhen, to someone. Fan theories have explored stranger concepts. Imperial guardsmen who survive by disguising themselves as Orks. Tau who learn to use the warp. Tyranids developing immunity to bolter fire through rapid evolution. Most of these theories contradict official lore. That doesn't make them less interesting as thought experiments. It just means they're explorations of possibility rather than canon. This scenario falls into that category. It's not canon. It probably couldn't be canon without significantly revising fundamental aspects of how chaos, Orks, and Dreadnoughts work in the 40k universe. But as a thought experiment, as a way of exploring the nature of chaos corruption, Ork psychology, and the concept of choice in a universe where agency is so often stripped away, it's genuinely fascinating. It forces us to think about questions that don't usually come up. What does it mean to be corrupted by chaos? Is the corruption the physical changes or the psychological allegiance? If a chaos-corrupted being rejects the chaos gods and chooses a different path, does that corruption remain absolute? Can psychic energies from sources other than the Emperor counter chaos influence? It also makes us examine orc culture more deeply. Why are orcs resistant to chaos? What exactly is the Wah field, and how does it interact with other psychic phenomena? Could orcs theoretically cleanse or at least suppress chaos corruption through sheer orkiness? What does it mean for something to become orky? And it raises philosophical questions about identity and choice. If Malog was forcibly transformed into a hellbrute against his will, then chose to leave his chaos masters and join the orcs, is that redemption, defection, or just trading one form of servitude for another? Is his gradual transformation into something more orky a loss of identity or a gaining of a new one? These questions don't have easy answers, and that's what makes them worth exploring. The scenario might not fit comfortably into official lore, but it creates space for interesting discussions about the nature of corruption, choice, identity, and belonging in the 40k universe. So yes, this scenario is probably impossible according to strict lore interpretations. But in a universe where a massive orc called Tusker, Demon Killer, literally charges into the Eye of Terror to fight demons forever in Horn's realm, and the Blood God considers this entertainment rather than an insult, maybe one hellbrute joining an orc warband isn't the strangest thing that could happen. Conclusion: the absurdity of hope. We've explored a scenario that pushes against the boundaries of Warhammer 40k lore. A Chaos Dreadnought captured by orcs, choosing to join their warband and slowly being transformed by the Wah field into something that's neither fully chaos nor fully orc, but somehow functional within the warband's structure. It's a ridiculous scenario. It requires exceptional circumstances, generous interpretation of lore, and a willingness to overlook numerous logical problems. But it's also strangely compelling because it asks a question that rarely gets asked in the grim darkness of the far future. Can someone choose to change? The 40k universe is built on stasis. The Imperium is locked in a slowly decaying nightmare, unable to innovate or improve. Chaos is eternal corruption with no possibility of redemption. The Tyranids are mindless consumption. The Necrons are ancient and unchanging. Even the Tau, for all their talk of the greater good, are presented as a rigid, ideological empire that doesn't truly evolve. But orcs change constantly. They grow bigger when they fight more. They adapt their technology to whatever they loot. They form new clans and adopt new tactics. They're the only faction in 40k that genuinely evolves from moment to moment. Not through careful planning, but through enthusiastic trial and error, and the sheer psychic force of believing things should work a certain way. Malog's story, hypothetical as it is, represents something rarely seen in 40k, the possibility of choosing a different path. He was an iron warrior who fell to chaos, became a hellbrute, served millennia in torment, and then chose something else. Not redemption. He's still corrupted, still insane, still fundamentally broken. But he chose a different form of existence, one where he has agency rather than being a tool for others to wield. The Orks gave him something the Imperium couldn't, and Chaos wouldn't: the ability to make that choice. They didn't demand his loyalty, didn't require elaborate oaths or rituals. They just said, "Can you fight?" And when he said yes, they said, "Good, you're with us now." It's the most straightforward transaction imaginable, utterly devoid of the complex machinations that characterize both Imperial and Chaos interactions. And in being accepted by the Orks, in being painted red and given extra dakka and taught to stomp properly, Malog found something he hadn't known existed: contentment. Not happiness, he's far too damaged for that. Not peace, there's still violence in his core, but a form of contentment that comes from having a place, a purpose, and most importantly, a choice. Does this story have a happy ending? Of course not. This is Warhammer 40k. Malog will eventually fall in battle, or his systems will fail, or the WAG will move on and he'll be left behind. The Inquisition might finally succeed in destroying him. The Chaos Gods might reclaim him. Or he might simply rust into immobility, becoming just another piece of scrap on some forgotten battlefield. But for however long this arrangement lasts, Malog will have had something that Hellbrutes aren't supposed to have. Agency. He will have chosen his battles, chosen his allies, chosen how to spend his existence. And in a universe where choice is so often stripped away, that's as close to victory as most beings can hope for. The real lesson of this thought experiment isn't about whether it's technically possible for a Hellbrute to join an Ork warband. It's about what it means to choose your own path in a universe designed to deny you that choice. It's about finding contentment in absurd circumstances. It's about the possibility that even the most corrupted, broken beings might still have enough agency left to decide their own fate, if only for a little while. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But maybe, just maybe, in the chaotic space between the grand factions and their eternal conflicts, there's room for one insane Hellbrute to paint himself red, bolt on extra guns, and stomp alongside Orks who don't care about his past as long as he fights well. It's not much of a hope, but then again, hope is in pretty short supply in the 41st millennium. You take what you can get. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most bizarre hypothetical scenarios in Warhammer 40k, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations of the strange corners of this universe. Let me know in the comments. What other impossible scenarios would you like to see explored? What factions could theoretically cooperate under the right circumstances? What happens when incompatible forces collide? The galaxy is vast and full of strange possibilities. We've only scratched the surface. Until next time, may your Daka be plentiful and your stomping be proper.